Westwood One presents America at Night. Here's your host, McGraw Milhaven.
All right, I'm starting to get a little excited over this whole Christmas thing. It's a fun week. It's Christmas week. Thanks for checking in. I hope you're wrapping presents and hanging out by the fire and enjoying a nice, relaxing evening. Kids might be asleep, but you still got lots to do. Thanks for joining us tonight on America at Night. Tonight, we're going to have some enjoyable conversation, and then, of course, in hour number 3, it's open phones for you guys. In the hour number 2, we're going to talk a little baseball from a podcast. A guy named Ben Orlando has hosted a podcast called The Midnight Library of Baseball, and it's great old baseball stories that you don't really get to hear, and that's the best part of baseball, not necessarily the X's and O's, but the stories, the characters that come along when it comes to baseball. So we'll dive into that in hour number 2. In hour number 3, of course, it's open phones, and we'll get to that then. But hour number 1, we're going to talk about technology. In the back half of this hour, we're going to talk to a man who runs a company that builds homes, but not with brick and mortar and wood, but he builds it with a printer. That's right. He prints 3D homes. So we'll get into that a little bit later on. But this hour, we're going to talk about cars. Because recently Ford announced that they're pulling the plug, if you will, on the F-150 Lightning. Also, their stories came out that the new car is, for the first time, over $50,000. So what does that mean for the EV market, for car prices, and everything else? We're going to spend a couple minutes with the CEO of CarEdge, Zach Sefska. Zach, welcome to America at Night. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks, McGraw. Appreciate you having me on.
You got it. Let's first start in the EV world. We know that a lot of these subsidies have gone away. And so what has that done to the EV market?
It's done what you would imagine would happen when $7,500 goes out of the equation. We saw EV sales spike at the end of September as the looming tax credits were going to go away, and then we saw EV sales plummet. Now we've got some of the slowest selling vehicles in the United States of America are those lingering electric vehicles that unfortunately dealers couldn't liquidate before those tax credits went away. So obviously you've also seen manufacturers pivot their strategies. Ford, like you mentioned a moment ago, pulling the plug, no pun intended, on the F-150 Lightning. So those tax credits played a major role in the demand for electric vehicles, and now that they're gone, it seems like things are drying up a little bit.
So with Ford's announcing they're doing away with the Lightning on the F-150, are other car makers sort of pulling back? And what are they doing with this inventory? Because they clearly have inventory that isn't selling.
We have seen other automakers pull back, yes. Ram, for example, was supposed to bring to market their Ram electric pickup truck this year. They decided to push that back, and ultimately it doesn't look like that's going to come to market. Similarly, we've seen some other automakers go, and restrict the production of vehicles. There's also those that are on the other end of the spectrum. A more niche manufacturer like Jaguar, they took the entire year of 2025 off to come back to market with only electric vehicles in 2026. Cadillac has a fully electric lineup at this point. So it's kind of a mixed bag, but it seems like at least the manufacturers who have not gone all in on EVs, I'm thinking about Toyota, Honda, those are the brands that have kind of the best supply management. They have not oversaturated the market with inventory. There's a lot of consumer demand versus some of these other automakers where they really do not have a good supply situation. They have oversaturated the market with their battery electric vehicles, as well as just their internal combustion engine vehicles and hybrid vehicles as well. So, those vehicles that are sitting there on dealer lots right now, there's over 3 million new cars sitting there at this moment, the highest level we've seen all year. These dealers are motivated, and these automakers are motivated to try and move them before we get into 2026.
CEO of CarEdge, Zach Sefska, is with us for the first half hour. What about, are any EVs going well? And I'm thinking about the Nissan Leaf, which I think they sort of promote as under $30,000. If it's priced right, does the public want the EV?
Yeah, I think you're hitting on something, McGraw. It's not even so much the powertrain, it's the price point. So, yes, we have seen some pretty effective electric vehicle sales when the price point is attainable. The reason that the F-150 Lightning doesn't make sense for Ford is because it's common, there's frequently a $60, $70, $80, $90,000 pickup truck. You know where Ford's seeing the biggest sales growth? The Maverick, their $30,000 pickup truck. So I think you're hitting on something here. We've also seen Chevrolet have some success with their electric vehicles that are also not super expensive. I contend frequently with my dad, who I get to have a daily podcast with over on YouTube. I contend that it's less about the powertrain and more about the price point. So I think you're onto something there.
What about the hybrid, where it's gasoline and it's electric, 30 miles, 40 miles, 50 miles, the hybrid? Are those prices comparable, or are we seeing that sort of lumped in with the whole 100% electric vehicles?
No, I've got some really interesting data here for you I think you'll find interesting. So average new vehicle pricing by powertrain, and this data comes from October. I'm going to read this out to you. The average new car price was $49,105. That's across any powertrain. When you're talking about hybrid electric vehicles, what you were just describing there, the average transaction price is actually $43,519. Just an internal combustion engine vehicle is $48,972. An electric vehicle is $64,146, and a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle is over $70,247. So you're on the money here. Those hybrid electric vehicles, those are the ones where you've got an electric battery in the vehicle and also a gas motor. Those are actually some of the most cost-effective options out there for consumers, and are also the best-selling vehicles. Toyota has perfected that with their Prius, among others, and they can barely keep their dealers' lots full of those highly in-demand vehicles.
Yeah, let's talk Tesla for a second. Now, I know you're a car guy, but Tesla is interesting for all sorts of reasons. Elon Musk is an interesting cat, but the Tesla car, their stock, since he stopped playing around with the federal government, the stock has shot up, and yet those tax credits have gone away. Plus, you keep hearing nobody wants to buy them because they're too toxic, whether liberal or conservative. How are Teslas selling these days?
Tesla sales for the first time are starting to slow down. They still are the largest, EV automaker here in the United States, and one of the largest globally. That being said, I'm not a prognosticator of what the market's supposed to, indicate or dictate and all that fun stuff. But something tells me their stock price has a lot to do with the fact that the ambitions of that company go way beyond just producing electric vehicles. We've seen other automakers, I'm thinking, Ford is a really good example of this, kind of try and follow in their footsteps and try and position themselves as more than just an automaker. And, it seems like maybe that's caused them to lose their way a little bit. Tesla is kind of they have no company. They are, no one is in their same situation. They have really positioned themselves uniquely, and it seemingly is just one part of their business, the fact that they produce electric vehicles that are, again, all things considered, incredibly successful here in the United States.
That's a good point. They are sort of an enigma. They're their own company, and they're in their own world type of deal, sort of bubbled off from the rest of the world, good or bad. What about the cars, the actual cars themselves? You mentioned the $49,000, the $50,000 car. What's going on with car prices? Why are they so expensive? Why have they shot up the last couple of years? And is it tariffs or is it something else?
So tariffs play a small role. I'd be remiss to say tariffs don't play any role. The biggest role is actually trimflation, is what I call it. So automakers' decision to stop producing lower-level trim options of their vehicles, and the removing of certain body styles of vehicles. It's okay, I don't want to be that hyperbolic. It's not impossible. It's very difficult to find sedans on the market today. You know what it's not difficult to find? SUVs and big pickup trucks. These automakers have gone so far off in that direction of, we're going to produce SUVs, we're going to produce pickup trucks, and we're going to produce the higher trim level options. That's what's really dictated why car prices and truck prices and SUV prices are as high as they are when you look at the entire market. Are tariffs starting to influence prices? Absolutely, they are. We've seen year over year some major price increases. I'm thinking the Audi Q5, for example, saw its base MSRP go up by double digits, about 15%. And we've seen other vehicles as well that are being impacted by tariffs. But the biggest factor here is not tariffs, at least not yet. It's these automakers' decisions to produce SUVs, pickup trucks, and the high content SUVs and pickup trucks that seemingly cost a heck of a lot more, or at least make them a heck of a lot more money.
I thought the car dealers or the car manufacturers started making more SUVs and trucks because that was a reaction to the market, that the consumer didn't want the four-door sedan anymore.
Yeah, I think there's efficacy to that. There's definitely truth to that. And I would also say that, do we need to have leather in every single vehicle or 15 different computers doing 15 different things? There's a mix of consumer demand and also really savvy marketing that convinces consumers that they want the latest and the greatest. And next thing you know, we've got, I'm thinking over at Ram, they have a Ram 1500 tungsten trim, which is a new, even higher level trim that's over $90,000 for a Ram pickup truck. I'm sitting here just kind of shaking my head.
Right. Yeah, no. CEO of CarEdge, Zach Sefska. Recently, I was in the market for lack of a better word, a beater truck, right? It's just something to sort of kick around with or throw stuff in the back. It was virtually impossible to find a beater car, a beater truck. I had to actually buy 2019, 2020. It's a nice truck, really a lot nicer than I wanted to buy. And everybody tells me you just can't find those older trucks anymore. They just don't exist for whatever reason.
What's really fascinating about that, McGraw, is the age of the U.S. fleet is getting older and older. We're up, I think it's over 12 years now is the average age of the vehicle on the road. So I think you're onto something there. You actually are going to have more of a challenge finding a nice older used car because more and more people are just holding on to them. They're driving them into the ground. They're maintaining them. And I think that's in part because it's so expensive to get your hands on that newer vehicle. It just doesn't make sense to let go of something that's been, reliable.
Yeah. Zach Sefska with CEO of CarEdge. What about the driverless car? I know it's in, Waymo and all these other things, but do you really see a time where you're going to get in your car and have a cup of coffee and read the newspaper or read your phone while the car drives you to work?
So, McGraw, I'm 30 years old. I've been working on CarEdge for 6 years now, and I'm in business. I founded the company with my dad, who's 70. Oh, man, I don't want to embarrass him. I think he's 73 or 74. Sorry, Pops. And, it's interesting. We have this conversation. I also live in Washington, D.C. I live in a city, and I travel to San Francisco with some regularity, a couple times a year. I go to San Francisco, McGraw. I'm the young tech guy. I'm taking Waymos. They're everywhere. There's more Waymos on the street in some neighborhoods than, people driving vehicles. It's kind of crazy. And here in Washington, D.C., we have Waymos now on the streets, still with drivers in them, but they're training those vehicles. And so I think ultimately this is going to come down to, how much of an impact will they have? Will they be in urban centers? Will they be in city centers? It certainly seems that way. Will they be driving people across the country and in every neighborhood and nook and cranny of the United States? Probably not. But as someone who, tries to be at the forefront of technology and lives in an urban area, it certainly seems like they're here to stay.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I haven't driven in one yet. I'm sure I will at some point, but I never really thought Uber would ever take off. And, now you have teenagers who don't even want driver's licenses anymore. They just want an Uber to come and take them. So who would have thought we would have found that world?
You're onto something there as well, McGraw. There's all sorts of data that shows that there are fewer and fewer young people getting their driver's license. This comes at the same time that the U.S. auto industry has been essentially in a plateau for new vehicle sales for the past 40 years. So, it's a little bit of a moment, like an awakening moment. The U.S. auto industry, especially when you compare it to population growth, it's not growing. And so that's a concern, especially as we have this affordability crisis. Heck, the Wall Street Journal, earlier today published an article talking about the normalization of $750 a month car payments and 100-month car notes. It's a scary moment here. You've got young people not wanting to get into the market and instead just take these Ubers. Maybe they'll be, driverless Ubers in the future. And you've got these legacy automakers who have produced all these $70,000 pickup trucks that no one can afford. It's an interesting moment. For those that are in the market, I just want to reiterate, though, there's a buildup of inventory. Now is certainly the time to try and take advantage of it. But it's an interesting time for the U.S. auto industry.
It would also probably behoove one of these automakers to sort of buy a sort of stripped down, solid, inexpensive $30,000 car. But we got to leave it there. Zach Sefska joins us the week of Christmas, CEO of CarEdge. Zach, thanks for checking in. Great content, good stuff. Keep your phone on. We'll call you as needed. Thanks for checking in. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Happy holidays to you and yours. All the best.
You got it. Zach Sefska with CEO of CarEdge. That was interesting. It's America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Back in a moment.
America at Night with McGraw Milhaven, where the nation comes to talk. This is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
Car prices are going up. They've gone up 33% since 2020, and now the average price of a new car hit $50,000 this fall. And as our guest was talking about, yes, they're seeing loans stretch out 8, 9, nearly 10 years. In fact, there are now loans that will go out 100 months. Listen to this. If you take out a $50,000 car loan at 5% for 5 years, that's $950 a month. It's about $6,600 in interest payments. If you take out that same loan instead of 5 years, that's now you do 100 months. That's 8 years and a couple months. That payment goes from $950 to $600. But the interest goes from $6,600 to $11,000. The two most important purchases, the two most expensive purchases today are a car and a house. We talked about the cars. Next segment, after the break, we're going to talk about houses because our next guest prints houses, and some people are saying this is an affordable option to the high cost of housing. And you want affordable housing and you want it built fast? Instead of building it, print it with a 3D printer. He'll tell us all about it coming up next on America at Night. Stay right there. We're just getting started on Christmas week, so hope you're enjoying it as you're wrapping presents and staying up late together. America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Back in a moment.
You're listening to America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. You're listening to America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
The housing crisis in America is real. Affordable housing in general, is being priced so high that people are being priced out. And where do they go? Well, our next guest just might have an answer for that. He doesn't build houses, he prints them. Lance Thrailkill, you own a company called Print 3D. Thanks for joining us on America at Night.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
In layman's terms, how do you print a house?
Yeah, so it's when people hear that, they think, you're picturing like a desktop, plastic printer, and they're like, wait, is it made of plastic? But essentially it works like a soft serve ice cream dispenser. It's dispensing concrete, and it moves, the printer moves based on something called geometric code, or G code, tells the printer where to go and where to dispense concrete, what pattern to do, what thickness, all these things. And so you set a printer up and it prints the entire wall system of the house. So you're not printing literally the whole house. We will get there eventually when we start printing roofs. and some people are moving close in that direction. But yeah, that's essentially how. So you're replacing framing, sheetrock, and masonry. And, with sheetrock, there's tape, bed, and texture, of course. That's another crew. So 4 trades right there, just done in one setup by 1 to 2 guys running the machine.
So the machine it's a giant X and Y axis, right? And it's
exactly
sort of like a printer in a sense. Just you have it sort of hovering over the space. How can you do a first level and a second level, or are they all ranches to start with?
So on our machine, I mean, we can go up. There's the engineering to go up. It's time and money, and so we're a startup, so we're not just wasting R&D dollars just to go up 2 stories. But in short, yes, they can. We have not printed a 2-story yet, and you've got there's different kinds of printing systems. So there's robotic arms and there's gantries, and so at printed, yes, spelled print 3D, but pronounced printed. Technologies. Ours is a gantry-based system, and so like you look at Icons, their Vulcan has been a gantry-based system. They're new, and they're coming out with the Titan is an arm, and it will actually be able to go. I saw it printing just visiting them, and it can print up to 27 feet high.
Wow!
So and then there is some gantry systems that can go 2-3 stories as well.
And so let's talk about time first. How much faster or slower is a printed house versus the old built house?
So speaking for the printing alone, you'll print between setup, and printing and tear down on the machine. You could print the entire house in 2 weeks. And so you've just replaced, framing, which takes, 2 to 4 weeks, sheetrock, which takes a few weeks, tape, bed, and texture, which, especially if you're going the smooth wall, takes weeks, if not a month. And then masonry as well takes weeks. So, you're replacing, 3 months down to, 2 weeks. And then the rest of the house is just finishing out like normal trades. You can do like slick concrete floors, which will help save some time. You don't have to paint the house. That's another thing. You can paint it, but you don't have to. And so whereas a traditional built house, it has to be painted. And so, for example, my house, it took them 6 weeks to paint inside and out, maybe 8. And so there's another, significant time savings potentially as well.
So when you're printing the walls and yet saving or allowing the space for windows and doors, right? So it just sort of stops, quote unquote, the concrete where the window goes or where the door goes, and it picks up where the wall continues, where you can just then lay in the window?
Exactly. Yep, exactly. And then with J-boxes, we actually cut those out while the concrete's still wet. I say concrete, it's a cementitious material. It's actually a mortar. You can print with concrete as well. We use a cementitious mortar type mix. It's a 3D mix. But and then so the J-boxes will cut out. There's a cavity. It's essentially 2 facade walls. It's not one solid wall, which actually improves the thermal performance of the house. So the larger the cavity between the 2 beads, the more thermal break you have. So they're much more energy efficient as well on that note.
And then do you put like the wires and the plumbing and everything between those cavities in the wall?
Exactly. So the plumbing, run through the foundation just like traditional. And then, yes, you'll leave some voids for, easy access points underneath the sink and everything. And then, the electrical, it's actually much more efficient than a traditional built house because, traditional, you're paying electricians, whatever it is, 125, 150 or more, probably more up in the Northeast in Union States to drill through 2x4s and 4x4s to run wire through. And so in this case, it's run more like a commercial construction job where they're just pulling wire through the wall cavities. We even run conduit to help expedite that process and keep everything clean.
So obviously, everyone asks you about price. That's variable, all sorts of based on different fixtures and everything else. But in terms of a price, what can you do in terms of savings when it comes to price?
It varies from 3D printing company to 3D. And, when people ask us that, and I will give you an answer, but we typically answer it the same way as every builder in America would answer. Well, it depends on the floor plan, depends on the finish out, so many different things. But just generally speaking, The average, I think, nationwide is $165 a foot for traditional. We're coming in around $115. So production home builders like Lennar and D.R. Horton will publish that they're doing $90 to $100 a foot. Are they really including everything in that? I doubt it. A lot of times they're not including, flat work or, shrubs, different things, landscaping. And so, depending, I think we're pretty close. I think at scale, I'm confident at scale, we could compete with the production home builders even more because the more you scale, the more impactful it is because you're getting, wall systems for an entire neighborhood up, in 2 weeks, depending on how many printers you have.
Yeah, no.
And so that skilled labor shortage is really where it is impactful.
Yeah, you're a startup. There's a lot of other companies that are startups. Where are we in terms of, are there people living in 3D printed homes today? Are there subdivisions? Are there neighborhoods? Where are we with this?
Yeah, great question. And so, yes, there's, Icon has printed like 300 homes over the course of their, 5-6 years. So they're the largest. They're a $2 billion company. And our value company. And so, there's pockets in Austin, Georgetown, which is Texas. There's a new development with Lennar and Icon going up in Miami. There's some in Colorado, and then we're seeing some of the legislation open up in California, where these homes would be perfect, where all those fires were in the Palisades. I mean, these houses are fire resistant, and so you can't burn down the concrete. So. Very attractive that they've opened it up there and started building there as well.
Interesting. What about earthquake? What about tornadoes? How do they handle that?
Same thing, much better than a traditional. I think the wind rating is like 250 miles an hour for wind, and then earthquake. I don't have the exact numbers on that off the top of my head, but it's much better structure in terms of earthquake as well.
Yeah, well,
and then mold resistant, termite resistant. So I mean, it's mold, termite, fire, wind, and water. With water damage as well. It's a much better product.
Yeah, you can huff and puff, but you're not going to blow that house down, huh?
That's right. That's right. It's getting back to kind of making things the way they were, in Europe, where you see houses still standing, hundreds, thousand years later. So, that's the type of structures that these are. So, and everybody just wants to talk about price, but really that's an important factor to consider as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The quality of the home as well. Also, the style. You have up on your website, print3dtechnologies.com. It is, it's somewhat modern looking, right? It's a modern-esque type style of home, is it not?
Yes, yeah, and we will be adding some traditional builds. We actually have a few others that we need to get up on our website. We're in the middle of changing web developers, but and actually a really cool new development is we've seen some other LX out of the Midwest is doing this a brick style, and so what that'll allow us to do is traditional architecture. And so we're building a rotary printhead, which will allow us to do we call it a square bead, which will resemble a brick. And so that will really allow us to tap into traditional architecture, which I think will open up more interest in the general consumer basis, because most people like traditional homes for their own personal house. Maybe transitional, modern's a smaller, demographic of people that like that style architecturally. And so we're really excited about the brick style print, and also that'll easily allow us to smooth the walls. And so we could do a smooth wall finish now. So I think a lot of people, get hung up on the beads. That's easy. We can easily do a slick wall. It's just a manual process, which kind of goes against our ethos. So we're trying to automate that. And with the square bead, we'll be able to more easily automate that. So smooth walls, bricks, or beads is the product offering.
Lance Thrailkill is our guest. His company is called Print 3D Technologies and CEO of All Metals. Lance, take me through affordable housing, because you guys are trying to do something. But overall, right, affordable housing is probably the biggest issue going on in this country right now. How does 3D printing help with affordable housing?
Yeah, great question. So, The affordability problem is, like you said, it's that, and I think healthcare is our two biggest problems in America. And affordability, there's so many factors, right? Like the interest rates play arguably the biggest factor. And so we need those to come down. That's the problem when they come down is it increases demand, which demand is already, beyond supply across America. We need like 7.4 million affordable homes. We're only building 1.4 million homes a year. And so, it's what really has to happen is address the supply. So you have interest rates, you've got materials, you've got trades, and then there's the supply factor, which is more of a macroeconomic concept. And so with the trades, because there's skilled labor shortage, those prices are just going up, and the quality is actually going down because the quality of the trades is less available. Traditional construction solution to the problem is throw more people at it, but it's not outputting more houses. We're building the same number of houses every year. And so skilled labor drives up the cost, and materials, we've seen, especially even this year, they'll go up more, but due to tariffs and such. But prior to that, they were up 30% in the last 5 years. And so materials are driving up costs. But really, at Printed Technologies, with the reduction of the trades, with automating the process, yes, that does help drive down the material costs and more so the trades cost. And managing trades is a big pain point for builders also. But the real impact becomes when you address the supply side. And so we can't build more homes. We've proven throwing more people at the problem does not work. And so once you can scale this, once municipalities adopt this into their building code methodology, and this can be deployed nationwide, then you can start to close the gap between supply and demand. And as you do that, people in the real estate market may not like it because they won't be able to make as much off every house, but that's where you'll start to see pricing level out.
Do you see a time where individual home builders will just bring these materials and this technology to, you'll have a choice of a traditional home or a 3D printed home? How does this take hold nationwide?
Absolutely. I foresee that. Listen, the construction industry hasn't changed in 100 years. What industry in the world are we still doing things the same exact way we did them 100 years ago? I can't think of one other construction. The most revolutionary thing that's happened to it has been the nail gun, which was very revolutionary. But yeah, so with that said, I think builders will be slow to adopt. I think the technology and particularly a little bit of the chicken and the egg is it has to be at scale to be able to really beat production home pricing. But in order for it to get scale, you have to have mass adoption. And so through mass adoption, really it starts with the cities. So a lot of builders are not even going to be interested if they got to handhold the city through the process through, other means and methods as a carve out of the building code where you can, if a city wants 3D printed homes in their city, then they will from the top to the bottom, meaning the inspector to the person, the city planner, then you can get alignment and get it pushed through and do it through other means and methods. But for the last 18 months, the ICC, it's International Code Compliance Committee, has been working on specific code for 3D printing they're expecting mass adoption by cities in 2027. So that final draft of the code is supposed to be released this month or next. I'm hearing January now. They said it would be this month. But the national building code will have the opportunity to adopt that in. I think they do, make adjustments 2 times a year. So in the spring they could, and then you'd see cities start to adopt it probably pretty quickly from there.
Yeah, I think once you see some cities start to adopt it and they start to see it work, I think it'll be right once 1, 2, 3, and then they'll all sort of fall down and start running to adopt some type of technology because affordable housing is a real issue. Lance, Thrailkill, the website is print3d technologies.com. They got some cool websites, cool pictures, cool videos up there for you to take a look at just how these 3D printed houses work. Lance, thanks for checking in on Christmas week. Best of luck to you, and hopefully we'll talk to you down the road.
Thank you so much. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas to you. Lance Thrailkill with Print 3D Technologies. America at Night. I'm McGraw Milhaven. Back in a moment.
America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Welcome to America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
Hey, we were talking about this a couple of weeks ago. These prediction markets, this poly market and this Kalshi, they have pioneered the space of betting on anything. Betting on when Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift are going to get married. Betting on how long the national anthem is, right? Those prop bets that used to be just for the Super Bowl. Well, now you can bet on just about anything with these poly markets and Kalshi. Now DraftKings is getting into it, and Robinhood is getting into it. They're calling it the prediction markets, and there's a lot of people who think that DraftKings and Robinhood and Polymarket and Kalshi, all they're doing is trying to push towards basically slot machines on your phone. So you will never have to go to a casino again, and you can stay in your bedroom and play the slot machines on your phone all day long, which is not a great idea. Prediction markets could hit, they're saying, $1 trillion in gambling by 2030. And oh, by the way, 2030 is just 4 years away since we're staring 2026 in the face, right? Poly markets, $1 trillion, people betting on their phone what time the sun is going to come up today. That is crazy, crazy stuff. Hey, Zach Sefska from CarEdge was with us, and also Lance Thrailkill from 3D Printers. Stay right there. We're going to talk a little baseball. It's cold, it's rainy, it's snowy. Let's talk a little baseball. That's up next. America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Our executive director tonight is Christian Mantos. Our engineer tonight is Richard Good. I'm McGraw Milhaven. This is America at Night on Westwood One.
Westwood One presents America at Night. Here's your host, McGraw Milhaven.
All right, let's talk a little baseball. I know it's Christmas time. I know they got some bad weather in the East Coast. You got some rain and some bad weather in the West Coast. And in the Midwest, that's a bit of a heat wave. And but we're nowhere near baseball. It's the hot stove league. We got to talk a little baseball. And recently, somebody put in front of me a clip of a podcast called The Midnight Library of Baseball. And they said this would be great for the show. And I agreed. And so we invited Ben Orlando, the host of The Midnight Library of Baseball, to join us here on America at Night. Ben, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, McGraw. Nice to be here.
You got it. So you're a writer, you're a storyteller, you're an author, and you're a podcaster. And the Midnight Library of Baseball, it give us a sense of what you're trying to do, because you dive into some of these great old baseball topics.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm also a psychotherapist, so.
Okay, good. We can talk about that later.
Well, I mean, part of the show is really bringing together these stories and, the overlooked, did Lou Gehrig actually have Lou Gehrig's disease, or did he actually suffer a lot of brain trauma? So it's like I like to look into those stories, but also the deeply emotional about baseball and these stories that transcend the sport and really help connect people. That's really what I'm trying to do with the show.
Yeah, so let's talk baseball and radio, because there's a lot of episodes. You highlight a lot of episodes on the podcast about television and about radio, and how radio played such a pivotal role. I always thought baseball embraced radio, but watching some of your podcasts or listening to some of your podcasts, apparently it was a sort of messy beginning.
Yeah, well, baseball owners, they were afraid that radio, I mean, you look back today and it doesn't make any sense, but they were afraid that people were going to listen to the radio and they wouldn't come to the games. And that happened again, even though they learned their lesson and radio became, a boon for them. They made so much money. But then once television came along, they had the same fears. And it's just this really conservative streak, and, something new comes along and it generates fear. And so they were really hesitant. They didn't want to air the games until Wrigley of Wrigley Field, the gum tycoon, he went all in with radio, and they increased their fan base by hundreds of percentages, and he sold a lot of gum in the process too.
Yeah, so they basically realized this was a marketing ploy that could teach people about baseball, get them interested in baseball, and encourage them to go to a game, right? Oh, hey, let's go to Friday's game. We can't go today, but we can go on Friday.
Absolutely. And one other thing that they learned over time was that, at the time, many of the women were at home. And so while the men were at work, the women were at home, and they would listen to the radio while they're doing, household chores. And often the wives were in charge of, how you spend the discretionary funds and what are you going to do on the weekends. And so, they also picked up, tens of thousands of baseball fans from women through the radio. And so women could listen, children could listen, and they were, before this point, they weren't really part of the fan base that could participate.
So I think that is probably the most overlooked story in baseball for generations. I live in St. Louis. Cardinals are obviously, very big in St. Louis, and study after study shows that at least in St. Louis, and I would argue in other places, there are more women fans for baseball than there are men fans, which is hard to fathom. But look at the stands. Look at the people who keep score. Look at the people who are buying the tickets, who are taking the kids. Oftentimes, it's the mothers who are taking the families and are the baseball fans.
Yeah. The overlooked populations. I mean, it just happens over and over again. So, it's a pretty fascinating story. Yeah.
Who is Graham McNee?
So Graham McNamee.
McNamee.
Yeah. So this is a really interesting story, and I mean for radio. So when baseball first went on the radio in the early 1920s, they didn't have banter, so there was no talking about, what's going on outside of the game. The announcers were strictly, they would describe what's happening in the game, and when there was a pause, they would say nothing. So there were these long pauses of dead air. And in 1923, Graham McNamee was an opera singer, and radio's just coming along at that time, and he's in New York for jury duty, and he happens to wander by a radio station. And he's like, what's this? So he goes inside, he's fascinated, and he asks for a job as a singer. But the manager's like, we don't have jobs for singers. And so, but he liked McNamee's voice, and so he hired him as this low-level guy, and McNamee's 35 years old at the time. And so he works his way up pretty quickly. And that year, he's announcing the World Series with Grantland Rice. And so he becomes this guy who starts describing everything. He starts describing, people walking by, a kid tripping down the stairs, and famous people. And, that catches on. And so, this play-by-play banter that we all take for granted today, it really came about because of Graham McNamee.
Who was an opera singer. Yeah. I would argue that, and with no disrespect to any current announcer today, radio or television, I'll get your thought on this. The voices of our youth, I know those voices will always have a special place in our heart because they were the first voices we heard. But they weren't so stat-driven. They're much more stat-driven today, whereas years ago, the Ralph Kiners of the world, the Lindsey Nelsons of the world, the Jack Bucks of the world, the Red Barbers of the world, they were more story-driven. And that was much more enjoyable to me, listening to the stories, as opposed to, I don't really care that the guy went 3 for 4 on Tuesdays and Thursdays when it was 17 degrees outside.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the stories, it's like, I don't know, I feel like it's kind of the matrix today with people. It's like you can see the stories in the numbers, you know? Like you see the screen go by and the numbers have stories, but yeah, when it was more, it was more instinctual, and that information is inside of you as an announcer. It's like you know the numbers, but it's more of, what's this guy going to do? He hits well. What did he do last week? And the story that goes along with him. And it's definitely more of a narrative. And yeah, that's what grabs people.
Yeah. Ben Orlando is our guest. We're going to talk to him all hour about his podcast, The Midnight Library of Baseball. Take us through your podcast, because the website, you have sort of highlighted some episodes on some seasons. When does this air? When do you drop new ones, and how does all that work?
I do. So I'm on my 4th season, and I try to air them weekly, but I do my best. I don't know, a season could be 15, 20 episodes, and then I'll take 5-6 months to start preparing the next one. My 2nd season was all about the making of Field of Dreams, and so there was a lot of prep and background and interviews to put that together, and hopefully weekly. But I do the entire production, the interviews, the writing of it, the editing. So
yeah.
It takes a while.
Yeah, the Midnight Library of Baseball.com is the website, and the podcast is there. We're just getting started. Ben Orlando, our guest. Stay right there. America at Night with McGraw Milhaven, talking baseball Christmas week. Could there be anything better? Back in a moment.
From the heart of America, this is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Coming to you from the heart of the nation, this is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
Hey, welcome back. We're talking baseball. It's Christmas week. Thanks for joining us. Next hour, we'll have open phones. Ben Orlando is our guest. He is the maker of the podcast, Midnight Library of Baseball, and you can find that where all podcasts are found, including midnightlibraryofbaseball.com. Ben, somebody at work pointed me to your story of Larry Lubers and Crosby Field. And this is why baseball is so great, because there are stories like this. You mentioned Field of Dreams. Tell the story of Larry Lubers.
Yeah, so, just a little preface. So this Field of Dreams was inspired by a book, Shoeless Joe, which came out in the early 1980s. So a decade before that, a guy named Larry Lubers saw that Crosby Field, which is where the Cincinnati Reds played for years, was going to get knocked down. And so he decided to get as much of that field as he could and take it back to his farm in Kentucky, which wasn't too far away, but kind of also in the middle of nowhere. So he spent, I think it was $35,000, which in 1970, that was equivalent to a couple $100,000 today, to rebuild the field on his farm. So he had rows and rows of seats. He had as much of the dugouts as he could get. He had the ticket booth. He had the signs from the outfields, and he put it all together. And he built this field with his son and with his children, and he used it to. They had little league, not only games, but they had entire leagues. People and their parents would come from other states to play at this field, and it was a really special experience. And then his son, Larry Lubers Jr., actually went on to play for the Cincinnati Reds. So it's a pretty incredible story.
So 10 years, 12 years, 15 years before the book Field of Dreams comes out, Larry Lubers does exactly that, basically plows under his corn and builds this Crosley field, which is tries to make an exact replica of a Cincinnati Reds field, which they tore down to build, I guess it was Three River Stadium or Riverfront Stadium, I guess.
Yeah.
And his kids grow up on this field, right? And they use it for Little League and baseball games, and this is where his sons learn how to play baseball.
Yeah. I mean, there's a great story of they would hold these tournaments, and like the parents and their kids would stay at the farmhouse, and they would all stay there, and they wouldn't charge them, but their fee was they would have to go out into the field and pick up 100 rocks, and so that was their penance, and so that went on for years, and eventually the field was taken apart and the farm sold. But I mean, I would like to know if W.P. Kinsella, who wrote Shoeless Joe that was turned into Field of Dreams, if he knew about this, it's like, was that in his mind at all when he's putting together his story?
Yeah, that's a great question for him. He's somewhat of a shy guy, that W.P. Kinsella, but it's an extraordinary story. Now, you did a whole season on Field of Dreams. What people forget about the book versus the movie, in the book, He knows he's building the field to find his dad, and the writer is J.D. Salinger. I wonder if J.D. Salinger, who was a very shy individual who sort of shunned the spotlight, I wonder if he had any issues with that.
Well, he did. He sued Kinsella. So,
is that right?
Yeah. He found out about it, and he sued him, and he threatened a lawsuit if he was included in the film. And so that's why Phil Alden Robinson, the director, the writer who adapted the book to the movie, he's like, I don't want to upset him. He doesn't want to be in it. And so he was at this play, Phil Alden Robinson, and he saw James Earl Jones in the play Fences, and he's like, this guy is going to be the new character. So he created a brand new character for James Earl Jones. And, everybody sees the film, and it's just, that's who was meant to be in it. But it wouldn't have happened if J.D. Salinger hadn't threatened that lawsuit.
Yeah, interesting. Is that field still available to go and check out?
The Field of Dreams?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So that's... the field in Dyersville, they made it, right? They bought it, and, they found a farm, they built this field, and it's a mecca, right? Today it is a mecca. So this field that was created from this fiction is now a place where millions of people go every year, and, it is outside of, Cooperstown. It's the biggest baseball destination for people, like as a pilgrimage. And now they have all these other fields there. Major League Baseball plays there. This year they're going to air it on HBO. So it's turned into a really big deal, and it's really special and important to millions of people. And
Dyersville is about as easy to get to as Cooperstown. I mean, it is in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, isn't that funny? All these baseball meccas are in the middle of nowhere. It's like it kind of harkens back to the origins of baseball, on the farms out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. I was driving up to Minneapolis, and I pulled over the side of the road, and I'm like, where is Dyersville? And it was like 3.5, 4 hours out of the way, and I was like, I could do 3 hours there, but 4 hours back, I said I'll put it off to another day. But one of those places, you have to get to as a baseball fan. Dyersville, Iowa, the site of Field of Dreams. Ben Orlando is our guest. His podcast is called The Midnight Library of Baseball, and we're telling baseball stories, which the fact that this father builds the Crosby Field, a exact replica of a Cincinnati Reds field, and then his son grows up to play for the Cincinnati Reds. That's only in baseball. Ben Orlando, hold that thought. We got lots more to get to. The host of the Midnight Library of Baseball. We're talking baseball. America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Back in a moment.
Relax. You're listening to America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. This is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
Phones next hour. This hour, we're talking baseball. Ben Orlando has a podcast, webcast, if you will, called MidnightLibraryOfBaseball.com, and it is chock full of great stories. If you're a baseball fan, great. If you are not, but you're just a lover of great stories, man, it'll pass the hours on a road trip or can't sleep or just enjoy a good podcast. It's a fun podcast, one that I have found and thoroughly enjoy, and wanted to ask Ben on the show to ask him about some of these great stories. Ben, too many questions, not enough time. But who is Chuck Klein, and why is he such a great baseball story?
So Chuck Klein played for the Philadelphia Phillies in the 20s and 30s, and Klein was, he had, you could argue, the best 5 seasons of any player in baseball history. He just put up ridiculous numbers, won the Triple Crown, and he was, after he retired, he was kind of ignored, and, for the Baseball Hall of Fame, one of the reasons was that he played, the stadium he played at in Philly, the Baker Bowl, they had a really short right field porch, and so people were like, there was a short porch, and he hit a lot of home runs, but he didn't really deserve it, and which is strange because Yankee Stadium, Ebbets Field, they had short porches too. So he had a pretty sad life after that, alcohol, and just his health went down. But fast forward to a couple decades later, his nephew, who was pretty close to him, Bob, he gets this letter. This is in the 1970s. He gets a letter from President Richard Nixon. And Nixon, in the letter, he's like, your uncle is on my, all-time baseball team, like all-time great. And I just wanted to let you know that. And so, Bob, his Chuck Klein's nephew, is like, he couldn't believe it. To get a letter from the president, and Nixon, he didn't have to do that. And so, like, for me to uncover that, and I was, never a big fan of Richard Nixon, but to find this, it's like everybody has good and bad parts, and like, wow. He did that, and what Nixon did, it also helped revive interest in Chuck Klein. So Chuck Klein ended up then getting into the Hall of Fame, partly because of this boost. People knew about him now. So a really great story, and like, people, you assume things about people, but you never know who they are or what they have inside of them.
During COVID, I was, we were stuck watching TV, and they replayed Tom Seaver's 300th game as a White Sox. And he's at Yankee Stadium, and they invite Lindsey Nelson into the booth. The Yankees do, right, as a sort of an ode to the Mets. And I kept watching this game because it was more bizarre and more bizarre as the game went on. It was a young Tony La Russa as the manager for the White Sox. Then Howard Cosell is invited into the booth. So you've got Howard Cosell, and you've got Phil Rizzuto, and you've got Lindsey Nelson, and they ask Howard Cosell to stick around, and he says, I can't. I got to get back. I'm at the game with Richard Nixon. We're hanging out in the booth. I mean, it was one of the most bizarre games. I couldn't help watching. I was riveted to a game that had happened 40 years ago because of the characters that were at this game. And Richard Nixon was one of the biggest baseball fans ever. Yeah,
I mean, Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, like the stories that they have, like you wouldn't know, but they definitely have some great baseball stories, and they were big fans.
Yeah. Ben Orlando, our guest for a couple minutes more. The website, the podcast is midnightlibraryofbaseball.com. I haven't listened to it yet, but I want to do a deep dive on your 1919 Black Sox, because you have a number of different angles and a number of different stories. I wanted to ask you about Kennesaw Mountain Landis, because you bring up in the podcast, in one way, he saved baseball. He was brought in as the commissioner to save baseball after the Black Sox scandal of 19. But he also, on the same token, kept out African Americans for generations. And so how do you have somebody who was hired to clean up baseball be so blind as to just keep a whole segment of society out of baseball?
I mean, it's a really fascinating story, because diving into Kennesaw Mountain Landis, who he said became the first commissioner of baseball, he would say that America and baseball wasn't ready. And he had relationships with African Americans in his household, and was really good friends with one man who traveled with him for years. And so he had these intimate relationships. So these are these things where it's like you'd love to go back in a time machine, and the historical documents, the resources, they just don't have all of the information. But he would say, America's not ready. He could have, he had so much power as a commissioner, so he could have definitely changed things. Segregation, night baseball. He kept out night baseball for years and years. They had the technology, and that's another equalizer, because night baseball, when you have daytime baseball, working man, women, children, nobody can go to the games. And so, the American pastime was really restricted because of the lack of night games. So he definitely saved baseball in a way. He cleaned it up, but he was responsible for keeping a lot of people away in a lot of different manners. And it took decades to get that back.
There's some things that didn't stand the test of time with him, right? Night baseball, integration, all those things. But fans of baseball today, there's an ethos to baseball. There's an old school mentality that runs through baseball even today because of Kennesaw Mountain Landis. And it's that sort of old school toughness. There's a right way, there's a wrong way. That's why baseball's been so hard to change, whether it's a designated hitter or integrating the switch, having National League, American League teams, and adding playoff games and pitch clocks and all those things. Right? It was so hard because there was a set of rules and they were etched in stone.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because Kennesaw Mountain Landis was really insular. Everything stayed in house, and the code. I've done episodes on the code in baseball where what happens inside baseball stays there and people don't talk about it. I did an episode with the code, and it was Robin Ventura when he charged the mound and tried to charge the mound, and then Nolan Ryan gets him in a headlock. That's a famous scene. But there's so much behind that didn't come out because Robin Ventura, part of the code is you don't talk about it. And so I think that's absolutely true. It's everything stays in Kennesaw Mountain Landis really contributed to that kind of.
Is it true that Red Barber almost quit when he heard Branch Rickey was going to sign Jackie Robinson?
Yeah, Red Barber, famous broadcaster. He was from the South, And, as he explained it, it was just the way things were. It wasn't, like he said, he wasn't racist. He didn't have anything against African Americans, but this idea of separation was what he grew up with. And so when Branch Rickey said, we're going to integrate, I'm bringing up Jackie Robinson, it just stunned him. And so he went home and told his wife, I think I'm going to quit. And his wife said, well, why don't you have a drink and sleep on it? And he did. And he was actually then channeling Kenneth on Mountain Landis, who told broadcasters, just report the game, like just report what you see. And, there's another thing going to Landis, who he didn't want broadcasters to give opinions. He didn't want them to badmouth umpires or to question anybody. But that, in this case, helped Red Barber say, okay, I'm just going to report what I see. And what he saw was a great baseball player in Jackie Robinson and a great man. And that's what that really changed him.
Yeah. Ben, Orlando, what team did you grow up rooting for as a kid?
So I grew up rooting for the Red Sox. I loved Wade Boggs, but I lived in Pennsylvania, and we only got the Yankees. And so it wasn't actually until I did this season on broadcasting that I really reflected, and I went back to my childhood in my mind, and Phil Rizzuto with Tom Seaver, they announced the games, and I didn't realize how big of an effect Phil Rizzuto had on me. He really helped me fall in love with the Yankees. And it was like, I didn't even realize it was happening, and it happened. And so, I'm a Yankees fan, and it's because of Phil Rizzuto.
So you grew up a Red Sox fan, watched the Yankees, and lost your fandom to the Red Sox and became a Yankees fan.
That's right. Yeah. Some baseball fans have a hard time with that one.
And you're still a Yankee fan today.
I am. Yeah.
I recently we had on Dave Phillips, umpire, who was an umpire for American League for 30 years, and he told us the story of the Pine Tar game, where. Yeah, and he is he's the umpire in this when they replay the game, the eighth inning and then the ninth inning, and he tells the story that they had to give him an affidavit from the umpires that were there at the game, and Billy Martin comes out and appeals first base, and they call him safe. And Billy Martin comes out and starts screaming and yelling and ranting and raving at Dave Phillips. And you weren't even here. How do you know if he touched first base? And Dave Phillips pulls out the affidavit and says, well, all the umpires said he touched all the bases.
What a crazy story.
I mean, that's what separates baseball. I love football. I like to watch basketball, but it's baseball and these stories and these characters that just keep generation after generation. I don't know what it is about that game that just it attracts characters.
Yeah. Well, it's so idiosyncratic, right? It's like you get the non-standard. And W.P. Kinsella, who again wrote Shoeless Joe, Field of Dreams, he said baseball really invited this kind of mystical, like the foul lines, if you don't have, you can put the fence anywhere. So technically the foul lines can go on forever. It's like the field can stretch forever. And that's what he had in one of his books. But it leads to this kind of romantic, mystical, reflective sport that is so different from every other sport. And it invites storytelling like no other sport.
Yeah, no question about it. Ben, Orlando. So the podcast, the website is midnightlibraryofbaseball.com. You have a whole bunch of episodes that people can sort of peruse. You've also written a couple of books. I want to give you a chance to plug the podcast, but a book or two you want to tell us about to sort of pique our interest with something you've done?
Well, I'm really focused on the podcast right now, and the podcast came about because of a book that I'm working on that is still in terms of publishers, but it's about a female knuckleball pitcher. And so it's called The Knuckleballer, but it's about a female knuckleball pitcher who gets a chance at the major leagues. And, for me, this was inspired by this question. It's like, why not? Why not a female knuckleball pitcher? Why couldn't it happen? And, it's a really interesting story. But, yeah, I mean, right now, I'm focused on the podcast and expanding and seeing what happens in different avenues. And it's been really fun.
I'll tell you what, if there ever is a female who can break that barrier, being a knuckleballer is a pretty good guess, right? I don't know if you could find a first baseman or a catcher or a center fielder, but if there's a woman who can throw a knuckleball, there are major league executives who would sign her and put her out there if she can get people out.
Yeah. I mean, the story of the knuckleball is a fascinating one, too. It's like very few people can do it, but it doesn't take power, right? It takes, it's technical.
How far are you from this book being finished? I'd love to read it.
Get
her done.
I mean, yeah, it's done. I even the editor of Shoeless Joe edited it, so it's like it's the story within the story. It's really meta, but just looking for a home now. But
beautiful. Are you looking for a publisher?
Yeah,
good. Ben Orlando. The book is, or the website is midnightlibraryofbaseball.com. The podcast, where all fine podcasts, and look for The Knuckleballer. That's got Hollywood movie written all over it, Ben. Hey, Ben, thanks for checking in. Love talking baseball with you. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and look forward to talking to you down the road.
Thanks so much, McGraw. All the same to you. Happy holidays.
You got it. Ben Orlando, the webcast, the podcast, midnightlibraryofbaseball.com. America at Night, back in a moment.
Live from coast to coast, this is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Coming to you from the heart of the nation, this is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
We'll leave you with this, man. Southern California in general, is in the middle of some pretty deadly flooding and some evacuations this weekend in Northern California. They're saying these storms are so powerful that evacuation areas in the Los Angeles area, they're calling for a rare high-risk warning for flooding. They're saying that there's so much water that is going to be inundated in California that the Colorado River is going to see its water levels rise. Now, it's not going to flood the Colorado River, and it's not going to flood Lake Mead, but the river and the Lake Mead are going to see some increases in the level of water. That's how much rain is headed for California and Southern California, as well as all of these high risk for flooding and everything else. So say a little prayer for the people in California, and hopefully they get through this. But there's a massive storm headed its way towards California. All right, stay right there. Next hour, open phones. Our executive director this hour is Christian Mentos. Our engineer tonight is Richard Good. I'm McGraw Milhaven, and this is America at Night on Westwood One.
Westwood One presents America at Night. Here's your host, McGraw Milhaven.
Hey, welcome back. It's Open Phones. It's hour number 3, and a couple of programming notes. So tonight we're live, and then tomorrow night, Christmas Eve, we're going to take a night off, and we're going to have best ofs, and then Christmas day we're going to have best ofs, and then we'll be back on Friday with new programming. As the new guy on the block and the new guy in town, I don't get any vacation time. No. I'd like to do the show and get a rhythm going and everything else. So we'll take off Christmas Eve. I got to put together some of the toys, as you can imagine. I've got a 5-year-old. And then Christmas Eve and then Christmas Day, and then we're back on Friday. 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. The hour is open phones, and it is Christmas week, and I'm sure you're got the radio on keeping you company, whether you can't sleep or you're staying up late and you're making the cookies or you're putting stuff in, getting ready for the dinner, or you're wrapping presents, or you're coming home and you can't sleep. So give us a call. Tell us what you're doing. Tell us what you're thinking. It's Christmas week. It's a special week. And so we'd love to share it with you. 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. Before we go to the phones, I got some good news on the show today I wanted to share with everybody. So in the background, in the shadows, as we were getting this show together, one of the things I did was I reached out. 2026 is the 250th anniversary of the United States. And so there's going to be a lot of celebrations, and it's going to, right, July 4th is going to be a deal and everything else. And so in honor of the 250th anniversary, I reached out to the National Park Foundation and asked them if they would want to come on the show. And each week we do a feature of a national park. And so we've been in negotiations. We've been talking with the national parks, not really negotiations, just, hey, what do you guys think? Are you interested? Let's talk about it. How would it work? And talked to them today, and they were thrilled with the idea. They said, we'd love to do it. And so starting in January, we're going to kick off with the head of the National Park Foundation. And then each and every week, we're going to have a park ranger on the show and talk about a different national park. And so we're thrilled. I'm thrilled. I'm excited because 300 million people a year visit the national park. Last year alone, Yellowstone was 4 million people. And every time you go to a national park, there's a sense of wonderment and a sense of excitement, and their spirit of America grows. And it is a wonderful, wonderful experience. And so you can't go to all of them, but we can certainly talk to the park rangers of many of them and get a sense of the history of it and pick and choose and sit back and enjoy the wonderment of this country together. So we look forward to that all next year, and we'll tell you more about that. But that came down today, and I was pretty excited, so I wanted to tell you all about it. 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. I believe we got a couple of phone calls right now, and I do believe, is Paul still on the line? Paul in Boise, you're first up tonight. Welcome to America at Night.
Thanks for the baseball show. Perfect
Thank
choice.
You. Yeah. No. Okay. Yeah, it was great. Wasn't he great?
Oh, yeah. Really entertaining. Thought-provoking.
Yes. That's it wasn't just X's and O's. It wasn't just, who the Yankees are going to sign and how much money and what's he batting and how many home runs does he have. It was, much more story-driven. So I appreciate the feedback, Paul.
Yeah, well, it's all real. There was a game that my dad took me to, my first game in Candlestick Park. It was a National League playoff game between the San Francisco Giants and the Pittsburgh Pirates. And he taught me how to keep score, which I didn't see the significance at that age because I just turned 11.
Yeah.
But I kept scoring. Anyway, long story short, it was quite a baseball game, but not for the Giants. Gaylord Perry took them out, and he got shelled. I think he gave up 7 runs in 5 innings. But
isn't it amazing how you remember your very first baseball game with your father all these years later? Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, that's how special he was too.
Right? I mean, every kid remembers their first baseball game, and they tell you like the exact temperature of the game and what happened and who won and who lost and who you saw. That's what makes it special.
Anyway, the Giants didn't do so good that day. They lost. It was 5 Hall of Famers on the field that day. And one was Gaylord Perry, who became a Hall of Famer. But then there was 3 Willies that were playing, one for the Pirates and 2 for the Giants. And I know you can name those 3.
Willie Stargell, Willie McGee, Willie Stargell, Willie McCovey, and Willie Mays.
That's correct. Now here's the trivia question.
All right.
The guy that had the hits for the Pirates did a great job. He hit 3 home runs that day. So I think he was actually the first player ever in postseason play to hit 3 home runs in a game. Now, I could be wrong because I remember Reggie Jackson hit 3 homers as a Yankee in the World Series when they played the Dodgers.
Yeah, I think that was didn't he tie Babe Ruth's record that day? I think it was 5 in a series maybe. But there's Reggie was the first in the World Series, and then I think Albert Pujols. Who was it? Al Robertson?
No, Bob Robertson.
Oh, Bob Robertson. Yeah. Huh.
Yeah. And,
I need to check on that.
And the last one was Roberto Clemente. He was on the field that day. He had just gotten 3,000 hits. And
then he died then in that offseason then, didn't he?
Right after that, yeah, like within 5 days because of the earthquake.
Yeah. So you saw one of Roberto Clemente's last games?
Yeah, I know. It's hard for me to believe too.
Wow. That's wow. Paul in Boise, he saw some history there.
He loaded up a private plane that he bought and tried to get as much as he could on the plane to help the survivors of Nicaragua's earthquake that they had.
Yeah.
And he overloaded it too much and crashed not too long after takeoff and perished.
Unbelievable story. Bob, thanks. Bob, Merry Christmas, Bob. Thanks for checking in.
Merry
Paul.
Christmas, Happy New Year.
You got Paul. Sorry, I'm working on working on tech issues over here, Paul. Sorry about that. Let's go to Tony. Tony in Montreal. Tony, welcome to America at Night.
How are you, man?
Good.
We're in a very, very cold and chilly night, but a Christmas night with a lot of snow. So it's perfect weather for talking baseball. I'm gonna call you up on your trade for Brian Trottier, but before you tell me that story, I want to finish the fact that when I went to St. Louis that day, that weekend, they showed me the town. They introduced me to Dal Maxwell, third baseman for the Cardinals baseball team, who eventually became the general manager. I had a long chat with him. He wanted me to come. He was trying to convince me. He said, listen, if you have any injuries, you come down to Bush Memorial Stadium. We're going to give you all the physiotherapies. The Cardinal football players are down here, the Cardinal baseball players. They really treated me well. But the best was after that meeting, they said, we're going to take you to the Hill. Like, where's the Hill? It's an Italian area, and you're going to meet Joe Garagiola's brother, Mickey Garagiola, who's a famous waiter in Mama's restaurant. And if you can believe it, this all happened to me in one weekend in the middle of summer. And I can remember everything because I'm meeting Joe Garagiola's brother, who is the greatest guy you've ever met. And I didn't remember his name. I had to look it up. It's Mickey Garagiola. And my dad was in heaven. He goes, how the hell did all these Italians get to St. Louis? And we just couldn't believe it. Italians coming out of everywhere. So, like, I was like, Dad, we can't stay here. I can't stay here. I can't breathe in this town. I don't think I can do this. But I ended up, was supposed to go to Notre Dame on a visit. And I said, no, Dad, we're not going to Notre Dame. And my dad's like, what do you mean we're not going to Notre Dame? Notre Dame's a great school. I go, no. We've been vacationing in Maine since I was a kid, a baby. I said, I'm going to go to school in Maine. I want to be in the country. I don't want to be in a city. I want to be in a little town.
Sure.
That's where I ended up.
Ended up in Maine. Well, you talk about the Hill. Joe Garagiola and Yogi Berra grew up right across the street from each other on the Hill.
Yeah,
And then,
they're neighbors. They're neighbors. Yeah.
And then years later, a young announcer came to town, was hired by the Cardinals, and he rented a house or bought a house on that same block. And that announcer was Jack Buck. So Jack
Are
Buck.
you serious?
Jack Buck,
Wow.
Joe Graziola, and Yogi Berra all lived on the same block, and now they call that block Hall of Fame Road.
I like that. That. What was that street? Manchester Street or something like that?
There is a Manchester, yeah. No, there is a Manchester Street, yeah. But the Hill's a great Italian neighborhood. Still very tight knit Italian neighborhood today. Where great Italian food and it's old school. Yeah.
I'll make you a deal. I'm in Montreal at Milano's, the best espresso coffee in Montreal. The best sandwiches and subs and salads you can buy. You come up to Montreal, I'll take you there. You take me to the Hill, and I'll come and see you in St. Louis if you're in St. Louis. So you got to tell me your story about Trottier.
All right, here's what I'll do. I'll take a break, and I'll come back, and I'll tell you how I was traded for a Brian Trottier. I'll do that. Tony, thanks for checking in from Montreal. America at Night, McGraw Milhaven, open phones, 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729, America at Night. I'll tell you that story, plus we have a couple lines open for you right now. Stay right there. America at Night, back in a moment.
Join the conversation. Call 844-2-McGraw. America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Join the conversation. Call 844-2-McGraw. America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
All right, Tony, I promise you I'll tell you that story about how I was traded for Brian Trottier. But we got a couple more phone calls I want to get to. Jay in Newburgh, Indiana. Welcome to America at Night. Hello.
Hey, McGraw. Glad to listen to your radio program. You're putting on a good show.
Thank you, Jay. Glad you're listening.
Hey, listen, I'll tell you what. My great-grandfather's uncle was Kennesaw Mountain Landis.
Your great-grandfather's uncle.
He would have been, I guess he would have been my great-great-uncle.
Wow. Was he on your mother's side? So was it on his mother's side? Or?
He was on my.
Was it your mother's? Was it your mother's? Was it the mother's brother or the father's brother?
It would have been my father's mother's uncle.
Gotcha.
No,
well, I'll be a monkey's uncle.
All right, let me repeat. It would have been my dad's grandfather.
Gotcha.
And it was his uncle. But anyhow, Kennesaw's father fought in the Civil War.
Yeah.
Was wounded at the Battle of Kennesaw Mountain in 1864. And Kennesaw was born in 1866, and he was named to the federal judgeship by Theodore Roosevelt.
Holy mackerel! Do you have any memorabilia from those days or anything that he had?
I tell you what, McGraw. There's very little history over on that side of the family.
Really?
All I know is I don't know too much about the man. I've seen pictures of him. And he looks like a no-nonsense kind of fella.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what the type of guy he was.
My great-grandfather, he was dead long before I was born. And his wife, my great-grandmother, never told any stories, but the family tree that we've got, he was related. And I've also got another story, and I'm not much of a baseball fan. But the famous catch that Willie Mays made during the World Series of 1956, would I be correct there?
I think you're right, off of Vic Wertz.
Well, there was a pitcher in there by the name of Don Little that played a part in that. And I don't exactly know. You might have to look it up, and I'm not real computer savvy. But Don Little played on that team somewhere. He was a pitcher, and for whatever reason, he ended up leaving baseball, but he became a supervisor at the Snap-on Tool Factory in Mount Carmel, Illinois, where I used to work, and Don Little was supervisor there, and I worked with Don.
Oh, okay. So Don Little was a pitcher for the Indians or for the Yankees? Or for the Giants?
Boy, I tell you what. for the Indians. Like I said, McGraw, I'm not a baseball fan.
Yeah.
And the Little family, this Don Little was a cousin to my uncle by marriage.
Well, Don Little, I think was the guy who was pitching and threw the pitch to Vic Wirtz.
Exactly. He threw the pitch. But anyhow, my cousin Randy, the team autographed the baseball, and my cousin Randy Little has the baseball, and I seen the baseball here last year, and the kids played with it. You can barely see the writing on the baseball.
Yeah.
And they finally put it up over the years.
What a great story. Man,
yeah.
You're related to Kennesaw Mountain Landis, and you worked with Don Little, and you're not a baseball fan.
And not really. I played baseball as a kid in Little League. I was decent, but I just never was a sports fan in general for the most part.
Yeah, I hear you.
As far as following the game and what have you. But it was an interesting part. And I'll tell you what, if you look at Don Little, you never would have thought that he would have been a pitcher. I mean, he was, whenever I knew him, which he was in his late 50s, getting into his early 60s, he smoked one cigarette after another. Great guy.
Jay, I got to go. I got to go. I'm late for the bottom of the hour break. Jay Newberg, Terry, Larry, hold on. We got more phone calls to get to. America at Night, back in a moment.
What's on your mind? Call 844-2-McGraw and be a part of America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
Yeah, it's open phones. It's open phones Christmas week. Thanks for joining in. 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. We've got Terry in St. Louis, Missouri. Terry, hello.
Common, we both grew up listening to Larry King and then later Jim Bohannon, and just happy for you that Westwood has entrusted you to carry the franchise forward, and I know you're going to do a great job. You already are.
Terry, the check's in the mail, my friend. Good stuff.
No, and then you're saying what are you doing to get ready? Or how are you passing the time? Why are you listening? I have a little shop in my home, and I have this little project I was working on tonight. So I want to thank you for helping me work on my little vinyl repair project tonight.
Well, we're just passing the time together, Terry.
You helped me get through it. Hey, a couple of weeks ago, you had this guest on from the Grand Ole Opry in Nashville, and he was outstanding. And I just wanted to add something that he didn't really touch on. They're at the Ryman Auditorium. Now, they have two buildings. They have the one out at Opryland where the Grand Ole Opry does most all of its shows every year. I think they do a couple of shows at the original Ryman on an annual basis. But if the Ryman, the grand church of country music, has been beautifully restored, and they have something there. If you visit, they have a recording studio in one of the back corners of the building, and you can go in, and if you want to record a song, you pay a fee, and you can record a song, use your own vocals. And what's really cool about it is, they give you a library, you pick one. It's kind of like a karaoke list, but not really. And the backing band is the Grand Ole Opry Band, that group of musicians, and they are flawless. And the engineer...
You mean like the house band? Oh, they give you the house band?
The house band. It's almost like you're standing on the circle up there and got these guys behind you, except you're in a studio, and it's a real studio. I mean, it's just like what you would see on TV or whatever, and you stand there and you have the words of the music, and you have the house band, the Grand Ole Opry Band, is playing the music for you, and the engineer is a real engineer that's been around Nashville for a long time. I'm sure they rotate engineers through there. And the reason I know this is my daughter has a really good singing voice, and she was with my wife and I, and we went there and paid the fee, and she recorded Walking After Midnight by Patsy Cline. And so in the prep process, while we're getting ready for all this, I'm asking this guy's like, so what studios have you worked in? He said, all of them. And he just started rattling off these names. And you, I mean, I could have probably done an hour-long podcast with this guy, just letting him tell stories. And it was phenomenal. I mean, and he'd worked with everybody.
After that show where we did the 100th anniversary of the Grand Ole Opry, we pulled out our calendars and figured out a weekend or a week to go down to Nashville and experience it, because it's a shame, right? It's one of the great, legendary, hallowed grounds, and to go see it and feel it and experience it, it's a must. So I'm glad you liked it. I loved it. It was a great show.
You will love it. And I can't say enough good things about it. And go visit the Ryman. And I know you probably don't want to record a song, and I never would have. My daughter has the voice where she could. But you ought to at least go check out that recording studio. Because,
I will.
You're into that. You're into that sort of thing. You're a broadcaster.
I'll also check out the barbecue. See if that Tennessee barbecue is as good as the St. Louis barbecue. But that's a whole other issue.
I've got the name of a place or two. If you ever want to give some advice, your call screener has my number, so you guys can call me.
Terry in St. Louis. Merry Christmas, Terry. Good stuff. Thanks for checking in.
Merry Christmas to you and your wonderful family.
There you go. Larry in Charleston, South Carolina. Hello.
Thank you, sir. I want to talk to you about the situation in Ukraine. And this Christmas, we can think of Putin sending missiles into the cities where people live. And I happened to see this video of them bringing out some of the bodies of the people who had been killed from these things, and this little girl's arms and legs hanging off the side just sort of pissed me off. And to think that America should in any context stand by while this butchery takes on from this murderer, brutalitarian dictator who wants to reassemble the Soviet Empire, and has said that we would stand by and accept that. I think that we, as American citizens, and me in particular, as a Marine, I'd go back out there and pick up. And this is a Vietnam veteran Marine.
Well, Larry, first of all, thank you for your service to the country. Second of all, it's been going on now, 3.5 years? And the story, I don't think is
nearly four.
Yeah, I don't think the story has gotten enough attention. Not only the human suffering, but Russia has basically kidnapped a generation of kids and have sent them to, for lack of a better word, re-education camps, trying to teach these kids who have been kidnapped that they're really Russians and to sort of turn away from their families and their heritage. I mean, the story has not been told about how horrific this Ukraine-Russia war really is. And The United States and Europe has tried to give them missiles and equipment and resources and money and all those things. And I know everyone talks about a ceasefire. Putin doesn't want a ceasefire. If they wanted to stop fighting, they would stop fighting. Vladimir Putin does not want to stop fighting. He wants to keep going, and he thinks he can outlast everybody else. Larry, I agree with you. It's horrific. It's heartbreaking. The fact that this is going on in the 21st century, I don't know if there's an easy answer to solve it, but Larry, I thank you for the phone call. And it is
something before I go.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Larry. I'll give you the last word, Larry. Go ahead.
I want to say this, is that, we can. They have about 20 fifth-generation stealth aircraft. We can produce 1,000. They, in every context, quantitatively, we can outdo them. And that it's a decision, I believe, that's incumbent on the president to.
Well, that's a line, right? I know it's murky, but that's a line that I don't know too many people want to cross. It's one thing to give Ukraine weapons. It's one thing to give them defensive weapons. It's another thing for them to allow our weapons to then bomb inside the Russian borders. It's another thing to give them offensive weapons and support, and then it's another thing to then use our own soldiers, our own military, our own pilots to go in and bomb. Then you're in a war with Russia. What happens next? Is that the line we want to cross? I don't know if we have that answer. But that's the next level.
We can't live in fear.
I don't disagree with you.
As Americans, live in fear of Russia. We must show the world that Russia cannot get away with aggression and not be punished for it. They need to be punished severely. He needs to be driven out of the Ukraine, and his own people will take care of him.
Larry in Charleston, South Carolina, Merry Christmas, and thank you for your service to the country, and thank you for the phone call.
And God bless you, and Merry Christmas.
Larry, thank you. It's America at Night. Open phones, 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. We're back in a moment.
America at Night with McGraw Milhaven, where the nation comes to talk. Call 844-2-McGraw and be a part of the conversation on America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
I don't know where 3 hours goes. We're about done with this show. I don't know where it went. We've got Dan in Salem, Wisconsin. Dan, welcome to America at Night.
How are you doing, my friend?
Hi, Dan. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, I just want to say this to you. There's a lot of talk shows that I like, and there's a lot of sports shows, and I always avoid the sports shows because that's just average. But I like to be educated, like with politics, and I really think that you ruined your show. You talk about sports too much. I can hear about sports all day long, everywhere, every station I turn on. But I want to talk about politics. And you fail to do that. You ruined.
Well, I'm sorry. You can talk politics now. What would you like to talk about?
Well, I think that Trump is doing an awesome job.
Okay.
I think he's deporting illegal aliens that are stealing jobs from citizens that are born here in this United States of America. And Joe Biden let 20 million illegal aliens into this country.
Okay.
Ruined the economy. Spent billions of dollars. Brandon Johnson's losing his city.
Who was that? Who's losing their city?
Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Chicago.
Oh, yeah, okay.
That city is gone. Now they're just trying to just drape the poor people who own homes in Chicago who have no jobs because of the Democratic Party.
All right.
And you fail to see that.
How do you know that?
You just want to talk about sports. And you know what's a leather ball flying through the air? Means nothing to me.
Okay. Dan doesn't want us talking sports. Dan can call up and talk politics. Great. Anything else, Dan?
You ruined your radio station. It's I go to sleep listening to you.
Well, you might be able to fall asleep faster now because it's not very interesting. So there's always a positive to it, I guess.
Anything that's fruitful.
I'm sorry?
Like to make America great again? And I
Dan,
think you're a Democrat.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Don't say that. That'd be terrible. Dan, anything else?
I'm sorry for your mental illness.
Okay. Dan needs a hug. Dan, it's day before Christmas. We need a hug. You need a hug. Come here. Give me a hug. Give me a hug. Well, Merry Christmas, Dan. Dan. Count to 10, Dan. Dan, count to 10. You're good. All right. I got just enough time. I told Tony I would tell him my Brian Trottier story. So, growing up, I grew up in Long Island, New York. During the heyday of the Islanders, when they won the Stanley Cup 4 years in a row. I wasn't a big hockey fan. I just didn't grow up with hockey. But in that era, it was hard not to root for the Islanders because all my friends were big Islander fans. So years later, Brian Trottier ends up living in my hometown in Long Island. And after he retired, the town had a softball league, and it was like a beer softball league. And so the local bar had a league, and Brian Trottier had a team, and the other bar had a team. Actually, Brian Kilmeade, right, from Fox and Friends. Brian Kilmeade's father had a bar, Kilmeade's. They had a team. And so I played for this bar called Publicans. And 1 year, I had to go to summer school. And so I wasn't going to come back and play in the summer in this softball league. Well, our manager knew that, and Brian Trottier didn't know that. And so one day in the dead of winter, there was a conversation, and there was a bar tab. And my manager somehow finagled Brian Trottier to pick up his bar tab. In return, he would trade me to Brian Trottier's team for the summer. And so I was traded to Brian Trottier's softball team. Unbeknownst to Brian Trottier, I wasn't coming back that summer because I was going to summer school. So the trade went through. The coach got his bar tab picked up, and I never came back and played for Brian Trottier's softball team. So that's the story. That's my brush with greatness when it comes to Brian Trottier. So there you go. All right. Now, I have just enough time to end on this. Somebody sent me this the other day, and I wanted to read it because this is the last show we're going to do before Christmas. And all kidding aside, we have a lot to be thankful for. Even, if you've got money problems or you got pain problems or issues or whatever, right? We're still born and living in the greatest time the world has ever seen. We still live in the greatest country in the world, no matter what our problems are. And we have a lot to be thankful for. So do me the favor and let me just read this little poem as we sign off for Christmas. Somebody sent this to me. I don't know where it came from, and I don't know who wrote it, but indulge me. It says, just a reminder, this Christmas only happens once. Next year will be different. Not better, not worse, just different. They'll be a year older. You'll be a year older. The magic will shift. It always does. So leave the wrapping paper everywhere. Open the toys right away. Put in the batteries. Let the living room look lived in. Soak in every smile, every screech. Sip your coffee while it's still warm. Don't rush the morning. So cancel the plans if you need to. Stay in pajamas. Sit on the floor a little longer. One day the mess will be gone. The noise will be quiet. And you'll miss this. So soak it up, all of it. And what a great way to end. And what a great way as we get ready for Christmas. Soak it all up, because Christmas doesn't happen every day, and it's a chance to sort of be with the friends and kids and everybody else. So soak it up. I want to thank everybody who has been great the first month of the show. We're going to take a night off, 2 nights off, but we're going to be back on Friday. So stick around. The best ofs the next couple of days. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays. We're back on Friday, but enjoy it. Our executive director is Christian Mantos. Christian, thanks for everything. Our engineer tonight is Richard Good. I'm McGraw Milhaven, and this is America at Night on Westwood One.